Hello, my name is Susanna Cass. Thank you all from joining us today. I'm actually dialing in from the Bay Area, California, USA. Well, good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are in the world. Thank you once more time about taking the time. I am very delighted that actually we'll be co-hosting the session today with my two colleagues from Uptime Punks, Paul and Tim from Europe. Paul and Tim, would you like to say hello to the audience and tell us where you're calling in from?
I'm going to give Tim maybe the first. For us, we're dialing in from London, so it's a great pleasure for us to be here, Susanna. Thank you so much for inviting us to give us the chance to spread a little bit of our love for net zero and carbon-free footprint.
Yes,
Thank
likewise. Dialing in from London too. Paul's actually on the opposite pole of the city in East London. I'm sitting here in West London, but we're all connected. It's great to be here and to participate in this talk. Thanks for having us.
Thank you, Tim, and thank you, Paul. Today's webinar session is recorded and will be available on demand. If you want to come back to watch it again, or if you'd like to tell a colleague of this session, you can go to infoprime.com and there'll be a button to basically access any net zero webinar recording, including the past that we have with other hyperscaler and many industry experts. You are muted as a webinar participant. However, please type in your question to our speakers in the Q&A box anytime. We are very interactive and we will make sure that we have enough time at the end to answer your question. If not, I make you a personal promise that your question will be sent to you in writing. For those who are interested in my background, I would just say it's a very simple journey. I'm a computer scientist. I started as a software programmer and I love doing quantitative data analysis using my computer science degree. I know one of my friends today is actually on, so I'll give a shout out to Kate, who is also a data analyst and she's joining us from Google. I got my MBA from Pepperdine. I continued my research and received an advanced degree from Stanford University Graduate School of Business. I spent much of my career, I have to say, designing and living and building data center. My distributed team work 24/7. It kind of actually matches the title today. 365 days. We love doing what we do, and 25 years pass by, and the next thing you know, we build over 200 megawatt of data center across the country. And we are very, very proud that we have clients like Goldman Sachs, the hyperscaler cloud clients, including folks who are keeping us on track of where we are with the coronavirus map, like Johns Hopkins. We were able to actually keep the uptime for 99.999, which sometimes we call it 59. But then I have to say that we have also many clients that have been very involved in a content provider, and we also support them, including, of course, the telco. I also work for the corporate based in actually Asia, which will become a topic for today. As the GM running the data center operation, and also work for Sun Microsystems. Joined the founding team of a few startups, including becoming the COO for eBay and other startups that got sold to Sun, Cisco, and in 2018, Base Layer was bought by Equinix and Iron Mountain, who now become the number 10 colo provider. Concurrently, I work in the energy sector for 11 years, which is where I met most of my colleagues here on the panel. And I originated about 2 gigawatts of renewable energy. I'm extremely passionate about climate change. Some of my sustainability work in the data center and ICT sector with the UN was recognized, and I become a member of the Climate 50 since 2018. But in my opinion, the list should include you, but more importantly, if you have any, your children who are our next generation of global citizens. And I have to admit, like Michael have 2 daughters just like me, they will yawn at a net zero webinar, and they should, because when the time comes that they'll be yawning to listen to Michael, Alberto, and Michael, Britt, and myself, we have achieved living in an eco-balanced life of a zero emission economy. And I cannot be more excited that new innovation becoming a daily event. Okay, now back to today, February 24th, 2021. We have much work to do on 24/7. Hence, I'm here with Michael Terrell, Head of Global Energy Market Strategy for Google. Michael, would you like to say hello to the audience?
Hey everyone, I'm Michael Terrell. I am Director of Operations at Google, and as Susanna mentioned, I'm lead our global energy strategy, and am thrilled to be here and happy to talk about all the work that we're doing at Google and with others on 24/7 carbon-free energy.
Thank you, Michael. So Michael used to run around the White House when his beeper is alarmed. He played a very important role in leading his firm on the environmental quality to guide US policy on energy and environmental issues before he actually joined Google. He got his JD from University of Michigan, his master from Yale Environmental School, and his bachelor's degree from the University of the South. I know Google is very proud to have Michael every day, 24/7 actually, for 13 years. He's an amazing visionary person and an amazing leader in guiding Google's clean energy journey. Under his management and his very hard work, Google actually becomes a successful pioneer and have procured over 5 gigawatts, and who's counting, right, of renewable power. And he has led the industry along with his team in renewable procurement of renewable energy. And he is a strong believer in recycling. But when Michael talked about recycling, he actually do it in big scale. He actually regenerated the infrastructure of an abandoned coal plant in Alabama. And yes, you got it right, into a clean energy data center. So Michael, once again, thank you for taking the time out to join us today from the Bay Area. Paul and Tim very much enjoyed the podcast with you, and we will make the podcast available to the attendee who want to hear more details about Michael's path. So Michael, I selected a few slides to basically try to show the journey of Google's clean energy journey. Perhaps if you don't mind, can you give the audience just a little bit of background in terms of where Google is at and how it leads to the 24/7 program?
Sure, happy to. And I talked a little bit about this on the podcast, but we've now been at this for well over a decade. We started our work in the clean energy space in 2007 when we pledged to become carbon neutral. And in 2010, we actually did our very first corporate PPA with a wind farm in Iowa. And at the time, the idea of a electricity consumer going out and signing a direct deal with a renewable energy developer was really a new concept. And we actually had to go to the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission and get special permission to buy and sell power on the wholesale markets in order to do that. So we did our first PPA deal in 2010. And by the time that 2017 rolled around, we had done enough deals to match 100% of our electricity consumption. And as Susanna mentioned, it's actually, we've now procured deals for over 5 gigawatts of renewable energy, not megawatts, gigawatts, which is really at a utility scale or even country scale in some places. And so it's been an incredible journey. We've had to do, pioneer a lot of different kinds of methods along the way to be able to do these purchases. In some places, for example, the law wouldn't even allow us to go and sign these renewable energy deals. And so we had to work with stakeholders to change the laws to allow us to do that. We've done that in places like North Carolina and Georgia and Taiwan. And now that we had sort of hit this 100% renewable energy matching goal, we're sort of on the last step of the journey, which is how do we be carbon-free every hour of every day in every location where we operate. And that's what we call 24/7 carbon-free energy. It's the holy grail, so to speak, in terms of decarbonizing a data center electricity supply. And we've now set a hard target for ourselves to try and achieve that by 2030. We know that's going to be incredibly difficult, but we're super excited about trying to do it and trying to serve as a model for everyone in the industry and also for grids around the world to get there as fast as possible, because we all know that the demands of solving climate change mean that we need to be moving quickly, and we need to be moving boldly and ambitiously. So that's a little bit, sort of a very short background and sort of how we're thinking about it, and happy to talk about some more of the details.
Thank you, Michael. To lead such an ambitious feat, perhaps you can share a little bit more about how do you feel and what might be the success that you have in this Moonshot program, so you can reach your target, and what your prediction might be. Are you on track to accomplish that at the end of this decade by 2030, given the challenge of coronavirus have been disrupting all our life for, gosh, almost a year now?
Yeah, today is actually the 1 year anniversary of my last airplane flight. So it is
Yes.
incredible to think about, how things have been disrupted. But no, we're optimistic that we can pull this off. We would not have set a hard target for ourselves if we didn't think that it was something that we could achieve. But we do think it will be very challenging to achieve, and it's not something that will be easily done. And we'll really have to approach it from, I like to describe 3 different perspectives. So the first approach will be looking at just how we transact for energy. So, it's very common now for companies to sign renewable energy deals and what we call power purchase agreements. And that previous slide showed that there's now, literally hundreds of companies that are signing these PPA deals and making 100% renewable energy pledges. So we're going to have to change the way we do that. So instead of, for example, just signing a deal to buy solar power from a developer or wind power from a developer, we really want to try to look at an hourly perspective. And so, for example, we would maybe blend in a contract for a little bit of wind, a little bit of solar, a little bit of hydro, maybe some battery storage, to try and cover more of those 24 hours of the day to match up against our electricity consumption. And yeah, the slide that Susanna's showing now sort of shows that, those green lines in this graph, that's just wind energy. And so this is an annual picture of the data center consumption at our Iowa data center. And you can see that if we just procure wind power, we're not actually addressing all of the hours of the day that we need to for the data center. And so we're going to look at how can we transact in a way that we blend different technologies, wind and solar and storage and hydro and maybe other carbon-free technologies to really fill in those hours. The second approach that we're going to take is really looking at, like, how do we move the needle on technology? And there's a couple of examples there that we've done recently that I think will be something that the industry can take a look at. The first is actually using machine learning to optimize our own renewable energy portfolio. So we're using now machine learning to optimize and schedule some wind farms in our portfolio in the Midwestern United States. And we're finding that we're getting more value out of those wind resources by doing that. Another way of using technology is actually looking at shifting the compute loads within the data centers. And so now we are actually shifting loads that are not super time sensitive into those parts of the day when the grids are the cleanest. So we can actually shift the compute load around to align with the time that the grid is the most carbon free. And so that's another example of sort of a technology tool that we're using to meet this goal. And then lastly, I mentioned this before, but we really feel like we need to advance public policy. And we're working with other companies and organizations to try and advance policies that really help to put more carbon-free energy on the grids around the world, set really more ambitious targets for grids reaching carbon-free sooner. And we think that kind of policy change can really help accelerate this clean energy future for everybody. So those are, those sort of 3 pillars are how we're thinking about how we're actually going to achieve this 24/7 energy goal for Google. And what's interesting to me about all of them is they're things that hopefully can be applied across the industry and can really benefit many, many companies and organizations beyond just Google.
Thank you, Michael. So Tim and Paul, I know you're duly impressed with our dialogue that we have with Michael, and the podcasts that we recorded clearly captured many of the detail. Do you or your audience have uptime punks like to ask a question for Michael now before I continue and introduce our next two industry expert speakers?
Paul, you or I? Who goes first?
Oh, you go first, mate. It's all yours. Mike is all yours.
Okay. Yes, Michael, great podcast. I'm looking forward to the release tomorrow. So stay tuned for this content that we've built with you. I think the most complete picture will be when you listen to the podcast. But just as a teaser, maybe for tomorrow, Michael, we talked about making use of what is there, right, of pre-existing conditions rather than trying to reinvent the wheel. Could you share with us some examples of how Google applied this circular economy principles when choosing data center locations, for example? I remember there's particular stuff mentioned in the white paper in regards to Southeast Asia, I believe in Singapore, where space is very restricted, and also in the south of the United States. So yeah, just maybe if you could give us some appetizers for tomorrow's podcast, that'd be great.
Yeah, and you know, feel free to jump in here too if I don't completely answer the question. But yeah, I think, you know, there are a lot of factors that go into you know, where we locate data centers and how we grow those data centers. And it's, you know, the interesting thing about our industry is, you know, you need to go where your users are, and you need to be proximate to the people using your services so you can have, you know, the lowest latency as possible. And so, you know, what I love about that from my perspective at Google, managing a global organization, is that, you know, it takes us to all different environments around the world to try to, you know, develop solutions for our customers. And we have to, you know, tailor our approaches to these particular environments. So, you know, you mentioned Singapore. You know, in Singapore, you know, obviously land is incredibly scarce. And so we have a multi-story data center there. You know, in other parts of the country, there's really strong, or other parts of the world, there's maybe, for example, really strong wind resources. And so we try to take advantage of those in serving our data centers. In other parts of the world, we may be in a colder climate, like in Finland, where we take advantage of seawater to help us cool the data center. So, you know, we're big believers in working within the environment that we locate and operate a data center to really, you know, maximize the opportunity, not only to run our facility is efficiently and as cleanly as possible, but also to benefit the local community. And, you know, I talked about this in I talk about this in the podcast, but, you know, another example is where we've gone and built a data center on the site of a retired coal plant and utilized a lot of the infrastructure there. So, you know, I think these are, you know, opportunities that as an industry, we should continue to look at more closely. In particular, this notion of repurposing and redeveloping existing infrastructure. You know, data centers are the manufacturing centers of the internet, and there's a lot of you know, infrastructure around the world that may be aging out or can be replaced or repurposed. And I think we see that as you know, certainly an exciting opportunity for data centers.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Tim, for asking the question. Alberto, I think I'm going to come to you now. Thank you for calling in from Switzerland this evening. How are you?
I'm very fine. Thank you. Thank you, Zena.
It's wonderful to have you. And also thank you for sponsoring today's webinar. InfoPrime, your company, is planting a tree for each attendee at every webinar. So I think this is really important to actually plant a tree. I'm going to, with your permission, I'm going to give a more detail of your background, your accomplishment a little bit later. However, I'd like to kind of get your perspective of the challenges of the 24/7 clean energy matching. You live in Europe, and I think a lot of times you look back at us Americans here by saying that, what are you guys talking about? I live already in a 24/7 grid that is actually clean energy, but obviously there still continue to be challenge. So perhaps if you don't mind, I'd like to kind of get your perspective on how you look at this topic. And then I'm going to ask Michael Terrell to actually share his reaction about your response, so we can all be educated by hearing about different perspectives and people around the world. So Alberto, how about concisely share with us how you see it being in the energy space and in it for 20 years, and recently congratulations by winning the European Union selection for clean energy standard design. So please, you have the floor.
Thank you for asking the question, Susanna. And if it's okay if I grab the screen, I have a couple of slides that would be helpful to illustrate the challenges.
Sure, sure, you have to stay.
Okay, let me see if it works. Okay, okay, good. Indeed, well, 24/7 matching is indeed an ambitious goal, and there are significant progresses and challenges. Yeah, we have been working together for clean energy for almost a decade, Susanna. Time passes fast, and this is also one of the reasons why we have founded InfraPrime. Yeah, indeed, in Europe we have been working on decarbonization for a long time before the recent acceleration of the 100% carbon-free energy challenge. But I feel now the time has come to implement our solutions. So the known approaches to solve the intermittency issue is, well, if 100% renewable is not enough, buy more renewable. So buy more than 100%, more than the capacity you need. That's the first approach. The second is being good at wind blows at night and often more in winter than in summer. Mix different type of renewables. Try to match by mixing, by covering every single hour by mixing different renewables. That helps too. And of course, on-site energy storage is the third solution, which is coming more and more with the reduction of cost on batteries. Here below, you see that all that help. Okay, combining, oversizing, purchasing excess capacity, mixing, and 12 hours of storage on the base of 36 years of global hourly weather data and our analysis, you can see that the number of events per year where you're basically out of power is reduced, but is not eliminated. We deliver a solution for data center, which means no downtime, 99.999 uptime availability, simultaneous, resilient, and sustainable solutions. In locations like Finland, indeed, it's easier to achieve 24/7 matching. In Belgium, this very good result, the data from Google here, recently announced the replacement of diesel generators and the installation of 10,000 solar PV panels. That helps, of course, greening and making a step toward 24/7. However, there are difficult locations, as already said, in Southeast Asia, Singapore, many other places. There are restriction, strong restriction in space availability, both for generation and storage, especially because renewable energy very often has low power density. Okay, and this is where InfraPrime implements this innovation to value. This is what I mean. It's time to rethink. I know you heard it already, Susanna. I'm quoting you from one of your white papers. Time to rethink and don't continue with the status quo. Now it looks like 100% renewable is the status quo and it's not sufficient. So it's time to rethink and go beyond that. Intermittent renewables cannot be on-site. The power density is too low and cannot be controlled. So there are daily and seasonal and multi-day gaps. Okay? Innovation to value for InfraPrime means a solution to match the IT load and the carbon-free energy 24/7 every time and everywhere. So we assess the flexibility of the demand on one side, the IT load, and that of the available power. And then we use typically on-site controllable carbon-free energy generation, where the energy follows the load in location and time. Okay, so we bring the carbon-free energy on-site. On the other hand, where the IT load is flexible in its processing schedule, then the load can follow the carbon-free energy. So scheduling flexibility means location flexibility for load. 1,000 kilometers become 3 millisecond latency at the speed of light. So we apply software solutions to transfer the load to location where carbon-free energy is available. And we work with partners who can deliver fast, reliable, and resilient fiber infrastructure. And I believe that's the kind of infrastructure that Michael Britt will probably talk about today. So whether the carbon-free energy follows the IT load or the other way around, the load follows the carbon-free energy, we do this applying the life cycle analysis, life cycle impact analysis standards, because we take into account the greenhouse gas emissions in the entire life cycle of the power generation, including, for example, the water consumption, embedded carbon, and so on. Okay, we do that. We are not alone in doing this. We're working with several clients and partners, and many of those joined the Climate Neutral Data Center Pact. We're working with them. For example, the Danish data center industry. But this is for later. I hope that I have answered your question about the progresses and challenges of 24/7 matching.
Well, thank you, Alberto. I'm actually not the expert here. You are. I'm passionate about it. Michael Terrell, what do you think? Do you agree, and what are your thoughts? Because we'd like to kind of get different people's perspective. I'll go to you first, of course. You're the expert, and you inspire me every day.
Thanks. Yeah, no, I would just say to Alberto, I felt that those are excellent points. And, you know, I mean, what's exciting about what Alberto, you just were talking about is that, you know, how this 24/7 approach causes you to take a much more sophisticated view towards how you operate your sites. And, you know, one of the things you mentioned was, you know, having the load flexibility, whether it's load following generation or vice versa. And, you know, we sort of found that in our own experience at Google, where we found that there was a significant portion of the compute jobs that could actually be shifted in time, that didn't actually have to be done in real time. And it's really causing us to, you know, think differently about our entire fleet and how we might be able to shift compute loads around that. So I think, like, you know, what led us to that point was this notion of trying to get smarter in how we manage loads to match up with carbon-free sources of energy. So I think that's just an example of like how this kind of thinking can actually potentially deliver all sorts of value to the fleet. A couple of other things I'll mention, and, you know, you talked about the difficulty in Singapore and in Asia. Those are challenging markets, and I think we will also need to look into, you know, potentially new sources of energy that are what we call more firm and more dispatchable. So sources of clean energy that are maybe not as variable as wind and solar. You know, for example, green hydrogen or other sources like that, and then also look at the power grids themselves. And how can we make those power grids more robust and more capable of managing these kinds of variations? You know, managing power on a more regional scale. Can we actually develop regional undersea grids in Asia? Can we develop more regional grids in Europe? Can we regionalize grids in the United States? Those are other things that I think over the long haul can help us get to 24/7 for data centers, but also add more resiliency to the power system as a whole in general.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you, Alberto. So this is a perfect timing for me to introduce somebody very special to me, our expert speaker today, Michael Britt, who comes out from the utility. Michael, are you there?
Yes, I am. Hi.
Hello, and
How are
where
you?
I'm wonderful. And where are you dialing in today?
I'm dialing in from Atlanta, Georgia today.
Ah, the state that we have to count it 3 times and got the same number. Got it.
Yep, that's right.
Okay, with your approval, Michael, I will give a more detailed intro of your professional achievement in a minute, because we have a little bit rushed to actually have Michael Terrell here. So let me ask the question, and then I want to kind of hear his response. And Michael, you might be interested in hearing the other Michael's response who come from utility. So let me get into it. So Michael Britt, can you please share in your own experience as a member of the leadership team in a very progressive utility called the Southern Company? What do you actually do as a president? Because I know you sit at home all day, Michael. Okay.
That's right.
Seriously, on a serious note, what do you really do in terms of play a very significant role that is unique to support the net zero data center, which, as you and I know, are springing out like the rabbits in the spring season. So please take it away.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you very much. So as president and CEO of Southern Telecom, I'm part of the Southern Company, which most important thing to know is how excited we are about some of these developments. Our interests and objectives are very much aligned. We also have a net zero commitment, and that commitment is really one to continue to decarbonize the grid affordably for all customers, but as rapidly as possible with an eye toward serving our customer. And the data center customers are really critical. STI, as part of that, is committed to really delivering that resilient fiber infrastructure Alberto just mentioned to really enable data centers to achieve a lot of their clean energy pledges. That ability to move the data or the workload around between data centers, so that location isn't as important, and you're actually able to match up as much of it as possible, is really groundbreaking and exciting, and something that again, Google, as part of its 24/7 pledge, is really going to help lead the way. That need for proximity to the customer and the demand for your product, which is skyrocketing because of the pandemic, really that aligns very well with utility infrastructure if you begin to think about it. We have land in secured buildings and locations that are really grouped around where people are, where businesses are, and therefore it might lend itself very well to edge type solutions. We'll talk a little more about that later, but this is an exciting development, and one that really hats off to Google for leading the way on something, again, so ambitious. I think, Michael, you called it the Holy Grail, and it is a quest, and it is something that is a very ambitious and worthy goal, and we want to stand with you to help try and achieve that.
So Michael, Terrell, thank you for spending the time with us. So any last word in terms of you share with us in terms of you actually getting a response from a utility person, so which is a little bit, so what do you think?
Well, we've worked with Southern closely in the past, and we have a data center in Douglas County, just outside of Atlanta. So, no, I think it just underscores, that it's going to take so many solutions to solve these problems. Whether it's networking or power generation or how we handle our compute, and so we're all going to have to work together to put our heads together to fully reach 24/7 carbon-free energy for not only Google but for data centers around the world. So really looking forward to working with everybody here, and also looking forward to hearing the rest of the comments. And I do have to jump, but I really appreciate you having me, and this is a terrific discussion.
Thank you very much, Michael. Have a nice day. Okay, we'll be in touch.
Thank you.
Great. So we shall continue in terms of our discussion relating to the carbon match. Even our president, thank you to Mr. President. America is actually enacted back to the Paris Agreement on February 20th, which is just a historical event. So this is extremely exciting. And congratulations to America, and also congratulations to the world. That we are back. I also wanted to share with the audience of the research that I have done, that companies, I know the slide is a little bit small, but these companies, a leadership company, have made 100% renewable energy pledge just very recently, and their own corporate venture. InfraPrime is working with them in terms of ensuring, and I personally have the privilege to work with many bright mind individuals. Many of them, frankly, are millennials who are actually helping to put these pledges together and going through this journey. More exciting, to be more relevant, these companies have data center. They all have websites. They all have e-commerce. They all have shifted basically online. And they all have plans relating to 5G. So this is really relevant, Alberto and Michael, for what we actually discussed. And on the left, I do want to show you a minute on the internet in 2020, just to humor you. You all are watching too many hours of movies. So please, you don't need to watch 11 of them at the same day. And so if you're not watching them, may I please remind you that turn it off and save some energy and save some resources. I have to admit, unfortunately, the catastrophe that happened in Texas and ERCOT is not a lack of technology. There are many things that we can do, and part of it is, Paul and Tim, you're still on the call, I assumed. The first podcast I basically did, as you probably know, is we don't need to wait for big companies or big local company to take the lead. You personally yourself can be a pioneer in fighting climate change. Paul and Tim, do you have anything else you wanted to add before I continue?
Yes, maybe that podcasts are less data intense than Netflix streaming, so stick to them rather than the Netflix streaming.
I agree. I agree. And
I would
for
like
those, yes, Paul.
Yeah, I under your mentorship in terms of the podcast, we try and spread the message of. So we really encourage everybody to have a listen, and yeah, feel free to reach out to us in Susanna if you have any comments, or if you would come and like to speak about how your company helps with net zero and carbon, neutralizing carbon footprints.
Great, thank you, Paul and Tim. So stay with us, okay? So many of you have heard of the agreement called the Paris Agreement. I just wanted to be very specific. It is not about the citizens of Paris, as one person have actually quoted. The Paris Agreement is about global citizens. It's actually not about just America. The agreement sometimes is referred to the Convention of a Framework of Climate Change, just like the UN SDG goal that I totally love and passionate about, is also sometimes referred to the global goals. So it is about your next generation. It is about your children. It is about your grandchildren. And what we like to do is actually have an effective and progressive response to the urgent threat of climate change on the basis of the best available scientific knowledge, especially for those who are very particularly vulnerable to the adverse effects of climate change, that we can all take full accountability and special needs and special issues for the least developed countries. Actually, an example of that is actually my community in America. Just because I'm in the Silicon Valley, I feel like I'm actually in a developing country sometimes, because we have annual California wildfire, and we have brownout that is completely unannounced, that is unthinkable. And unfortunately, we all have witnessed the catastrophe happened in ERCOT. So the timing is now, and I hope that we will acknowledge that climate change is a common concern of mankind, and all parties, you individually included, not just the company you work for. We all need to take action to address this climate change. We need to show respect. We need to promote and consider our respective obligations on human rights. And we need to learn the importance of the concept of climate justice. And I genuinely hope by now that we have learned about the importance and the benefit of all of us in gender equality and take action towards climate change. We are in the Industrial 4.0, and the fourth wave is actually happening as we speak. For those of you who don't know, while you have been at home and while all your life have been disrupted, 17 million square feet of new build of data center actually happened during the pandemic, and 800 new megawatts are being absorbed. Just think about that. So 1 internet minute in 2020 requires resilience and sustainability. And you got people like the Zoom didn't even make it to the 1 minute on the internet in 2019, which I have that slide for those of you interested. So with that, I think I'm going to go to my two next speakers. And Alberto, maybe we'll start with yourself first, if you don't mind. You are in Europe, in Switzerland, you said, and you have worked in the energy space for over 20 years. Prior to you founding InfoPrime, You also have founded a company that we have an opportunity to work with a hyperscale that putting in together some on-site clean energy, have, knock on a wood, still do not have a downtime. So we actually have done more than 5.9 for them. Can you take us away now in terms of, we're all done about the ambition. I'm all about execution. So can we transition into how does a 24/7 ambition translate into 24/7 execution, and share the rest of the webinar with you and Michael about how it really works in terms of the hard work that you all do for our sector. So you have the floor.
With pleasure. Thank you, Susanna. I will share the screen again so that I can go now into a little bit more details on how the 24/7 challenge can be mastered, and actually 24/7 can be achieved. I do this with an example based on InfraPrime modeling and solar data to show how to deliver 24/7 carbon-free energy in a location in California. Probably worth thinking about you to help your situation there. So this is based on our modeling, based on real weather data. We start with just 1 megawatt of data center load. And we have said already that we follow two approaches. Either the IT follows the carbon-free energy, the IT load follows the carbon-free energy, or the carbon-free energy follows the IT load. In this case, we do the second. We take 100% renewable purchase, which needs 5.6 megawatt of solar PV. This would cover, on average, unfortunately, on average, the energy need of the data center. We know that the intermittency of renewable power is not the only issue, as you very well mentioned, also the reliability of the grid. So 100% renewable is not sufficient. We have added in our model 24 hours of battery storage, which is quite a lot. It's several containers of batteries. And this leaves several events without power for multiple days. Those are the blue, light blue stripes. And this is where the fuel cell has to kick in, because the green, which is solar, and the yellow, which is the battery, cannot cover the need and cannot cover the need of the data center in terms of power, absorb power. Okay, so we add to get the 24/7 a third element, which is hydrogen fuel cell in this case. So we use green hydrogen, and on-site hydrogen storage and fuel cell, they both can generate clean energy on-site. This clean energy on-site can follow the IT load. So for storage duration up to 8, maybe 12 hours, batteries are the right choice. The prices are coming down very fast. For longer duration, the incremental storage cost will make you switch at a certain point to hydrogen. Just to give an idea about the comparison of the cost, 1 kilowatt hour of lithium ion could cost anywhere around $100. 1 kilowatt hour of hydrogen will cost less than $1, even at today's prices, and it will cost much less in the future. So that's one solution. What we do at InfraPrime, as you have mentioned, we have also designed solution which has been used to deliver 24/7 prime power to data center, not only long duration backup power. I'm very proud to have delivered the fuel cells to the hyperscaler mentioned before, to that data center, which has operated now for 3 years without backup generators, without being connected to the grid, and most importantly, without downtime due to the fuel cells. For this, that data center won a DCD award back in 2018. And we're working within a European project to define an industry standard for the use of modular fuel cells in data centers, which can be deployed at rack level, a pod level, and a campus level. They will use renewable natural gas or hydrogen, or a mix of the two. However, I mentioned that the data center was not connected to the grid, only to the gas grid. The highest value for such an asset, as such an infrastructure, is not to be grid independent, but to be grid parallel. There is a lot of value to be created in the grid interaction, and with the data center, providing grid services to the grid. And that is really one of the topics we are focused on with our partners. Power density, last point, is very important for us because it is for our clients. We integrate high power density fuel cells in our design to support power density per rack starting from 4 to 6 kilowatt to 24 kilowatt per rack and more. And we are working on the integration of liquid immersion cooling to achieve PUE of 1.1 and WUE, water usage efficiency, of 0.02. Basically, we don't waste water running the data center. This means that data center operators like control. We know it, and what we are doing in InfraPrime is to make emissions transparent. We enable the transparency of all the relevant metrics to allow for accountability and for the certification of the progresses towards 24/7 carbon-free energy, and also to support the SDG, responsible production and responsible consumption goals. We provide the tools to measure the right metrics in terms of consumption, emissions, going beyond PUE, measuring the water usage effectiveness, and other metrics following the life cycle analysis approach, including embedded carbon and all the other elements. You must have those metrics available at every moment for the decision that you take and for the decision that your algorithm will take to operate your data center and to match the load and the carbon-free energy on a 24/7 basis. And I would like to conclude with, maybe it's a busy slide, but it's a representation of our vision. With the data center in the middle there, which are designed, built, and operated, achieving net zero operation. That means a lot of zero carbon, zero emissions, zero waste, zero diesel, zero generators, and zero water on a life cycle base. Okay, where the load is matched, of course, with 24/7 with carbon-free energy. And the data center resilient and sustainable infrastructure is embedded in the community infrastructure in a symbiotic way. Both sides benefit from the power, the connectivity, the water infrastructure, and together they realize a true circular economy. Susanna has authored a white paper to illustrate this framework of a net zero data center as an ecosystem. It was published last year by Paul and team at Techierati. You can find it also on a link on our website. It looks like a lot of stuff. It looks like an ambitious goal, but in the end is what everybody living on this planet needs. And we are very, very confident and committed to make it happen. Thank you, Susanna. Give it back to you.
Thank you, Michael. We're next. And Alberto, thank you for setting the stage. And I really appreciate the fact that you and Michael maybe come back together to talk about the symbiotic relationship and the collaboration between the two of you as leaders of what I call the new Pioneer Pack. So Michael Britt, humor aside, actually, he is sitting at home. You actually have a family emergency this morning and still take the time to join us. So I personally thank you. I hope everybody is safe and healthy at the house. Michael has an extensive background, and for those who like to know more about him, which I really encourage you to, especially the folks who are very interested in looking at capitalizing new projects, he has something in his portfolio that is extremely interesting. Southern Telecom is within an organization which I think I will let you explain it, Michael, so I don't actually do a poor job at it. But specifically, I actually think you and your team had a very fun job because you facilitate digital transformation. None of us can actually be successfully going through this industrial 4.0 if it wasn't people like yourself, helping us to advance the telecommunication infrastructure, helping us to really understand the latency of the support and the implications of what 5G can bring to all of us, so we genuinely can do something that we can never have done before. So I think this is extremely exciting time for you and your team, and also have this wonderful family of yours, the Southern Company, and for you to also have led the Energy Innovation Center. So no surprising for me that you have taken your entire career accomplishment, achievement, and really focus on what you can actually bring to the net zero data center industry. So Michael, you have the floor. Please take it away.
All right. Thank you so much, Susanna. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, first, thank you very much for the opportunity to share a little bit about, our vision on how resilient fiber infrastructure really is a key component of our corporate philosophy of providing the infrastructure to enable the energy future. Our CEO about a week ago tweeted what's there on the right, that really our commitment is one to a net zero future, and that transition we'll move to it as rapidly as we can. In fact, we're already ahead of schedule on our first objective of cutting our carbon in half. The company I'm CEO of is Southern Telecom, which is really the fiber infrastructure subsidiary of Southern Company. We also have power companies that deliver electric service, Georgia Power, Alabama, and Mississippi Power. They do a lot of site selection support. You'd be amazed if you're looking at locating in the Southeast that the number of services that are available from those folks. And then we also, under this one umbrella, we have Southern Power, which is really wholesale solar and wind, Power Secure, which is one of the market leaders in microgrids, and then Southern Company Gas, really a great source for RNG. So all these things together are part of our ability to put a complete solution together. I'm really going to focus on the resilient fiber infrastructure and its importance as a layer for really that 24/7 matching to be possible. Really, that exciting vision that Google shared with its 24/7 load matching, and then Alberto did a fabulous job showing the mission, but also in his final slide showing a bit of the complexity. And frankly, these are great developments because it really begins to communicate the need to collaborate and bring new combinations together. What we're talking about here is the transport layer, really that physical infrastructure. At the heart of it, we're an infrastructure company. And the ability to match analytic workload with carbon-free energy really is going to require a very robust physical layer that achieves very low latency. So again, as Alberto was sharing, with things moving at the speed of light, really distance becomes less and less important. However, proximate location is also very important for edge computing, those applications. If you looked at the minute that Susanna shared, a lot of that could very much be located at the edge. High capacity, again, fiber continues to become more and more capable of delivering high bandwidth workloads across distance, and resilience. Again, ring infrastructures that are self-healing enable a lot of those capabilities are really important to make that possible. Well, we in 2018 stepped back and said, how do we work together as a system? How can telecommunications be play a larger role in supporting the rapidly developing markets here and the demand for clean energy? We took actually a page out of the book of repurposing aging out infrastructure. If you look over on the right, there was a steam infrastructure that provided district heating throughout Atlanta, and STI bought that infrastructure, repurposed it to use it at really to create those steam pipes are really now our our duct infrastructure running through the city, and many of the buildings in the city were already on net, which allowed us to very quickly wire up an important ring. So you see, we've got multiple rings there. The southern ring includes 56 Marietta, 55 Marietta. We'll talk a bit more there, but you're really talking about the key, a lot of the key data centers, a lot of the key carrier hotels and internet peering points are on that network. And then on the left, you'll see we also built a ring out to sort of the northern suburbs, where there's another big business district within Metro Atlanta. Our vision there is to create these rings to enable this kind of communication. If you look at the carrier hotels and really the infrastructure that is the heart of optimal path networking and cloud infrastructure, you can see that Atlanta plays an important role in the Southeast. And so interconnecting there and then moving to more of a hub and spoke, if you go to Nashville or Memphis or Jacksonville or other places, that's important. But as we also begin to think about this, we need to be thinking about the value of the network, and really that old Metcalfe's law, that the value of a network is a function of what it interconnects. The more things we can interconnect with, whether it's other data centers, other regions, it really will create greater and greater value and greater flexibility for the data centers to move their traffic to meet the next greenest megawatt on the grid. We've also, in addition to that broader fiber infrastructure, been thinking about the edge co-location opportunities that could exist and how we can try to develop 24/7 on-site clean energy that would enable a link to the cloud, a edge access point, if you will. And so we've begun building out a site like that at 270 Peachtree. It's on that network that we showed earlier. And again, we're working on trying to develop. We're bringing this great location. We're bringing this great sort of resilient infrastructure, and then really look forward to building it out to meet whatever requirements there might be from a customer. But you could certainly go in a grid parallel approach similar to what Alberto shared, and he was kind enough to share an image there on the right of something that is possible to begin to build out one of those data center CFE type designs in our location at 270 Peachtree. So really, the key here isn't about this space as much as it's about beginning to build clean energy edge access points that allow more and more flexibility for your data center to meet your clean energy objectives. That's really a little bit of what I wanted to share with the group. And again, so appreciate the opportunity to join you today. Susanna, turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Michael. Very progressive thinking. And I know that part of what everybody does is, especially behind a man's job, there's actually many excellent people behind you that basically put that together. So I'll give a shout out to all the people. I'll give a shout out to all the people that basically support you. But it's definitely a very progressive thinking. So in closing, I kind of want to share with the team about decarbonization. What everybody and the leaders basically today talked about, for example, is something that I personally enjoy doing. Working with many of the members now become the Climate Neutral Data Center Pack, running on physical infrastructure that I just never look back. If I talk to Britt and I work with everybody on the team, I know that they have my back. Every accountability, every data is actually available similar to the slide that Alberto talked about. We data center people are very data intensive and data analytics. The operator absolutely need to have the control in order for us to actually support you all out there who basically live on the internet to live, learn, play, and entertain yourself. So it is extremely important that we need to kind of take the feet in terms of addressing this issue to make it to be an emission economy. I believe we owe it to ourselves and our next generation to get there. So I genuinely want to thank everybody to attend. We ran over a little bit. We'll have the recording available. The resource guide would be this, the following. I think Paul and Tim mentioned graciously about the fact that they have done the Uptime Punk podcast, very detailed in terms of Michael Terrell to walk through in more detail. The white paper that Alberto talked about got published by Tecarati. And I know, Michael, you probably have more detail regarding the resource in terms of how we participate in Georgia Atlanta, which everybody in the world knows about it because for good reasons.
We're so proud.
Yes, you're so proud. You just need to keep counting the data and it works, you know. And I hope today we are able to actually share with you our passion and the work we have done. So please connect with us, through LinkedIn or come to our website and contact us all individually. We'd like to know about where you are at in your net zero journey. I frankly love that site that Michael Britt shown. It's a wonderful example to be able to exemplify any hyperscaler, any edge computing, a colo provider to basically just get on ramp using his quote. And be able to actually join us all in the net zero journey. So again, I thank all the speakers. I thank more importantly, the attendees and the audience. Thank you for joining us today. So this will now conclude today's webinar and I wish you all safe and have a very nice day and evening. Take care. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you so much.